Introduction. The Path of the Perfect Son. Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Third Legion, the Emperor's children, whose name became a byword for perfectionism and arrogance. Even before the heresy, he was proclaimed the perfect son of the Emperor, literally an emperor within a father, and by his example led a cult of beauty and craft. BlackLibrary.com. Official descriptions say that the arrival of Fulgrim and his legion was always accompanied by a lavish display of splendor. A perfumed parade was the prelude to their brutal pursuit of perfection. WarhammerCommunity.com. Such striving for an ideal was combined with obvious narcissism. As Black Library themselves note, Fulgrim was a being of supreme haughtiness, embodying an extreme drive for perfection. WarhammerCommunity.com. Nevertheless, behind the idealist facade there hid growing pride and inner dissonance. His legion displayed pride, self-love, and internecine conflict. BlackLibrary.com. Our goal is to understand why such a gifted warrior, beloved by the Emperor, betrayed humanity. The answer lies at the intersection of WH-40K lore and personality psychology. On one hand, external factors played an important role: the Emperor's influence and the Legion's cult, the gift of demonic weaponry, and the whispers of chaos. On other, Fulgrim's internal predispositions, narcissism, fanatical perfectionism, aesthetic obsession, and a need for control. We will analyze these aspects through the lens of psychoanalysis, psycho-cognitive behavioral theory, and Jungian archetypal psychology, and reflect the conclusions in a table of Fulgrim's personality characteristics. Striving for perfection and narcissism. From youth, Fulgrim strove to resemble the Emperor, but to surpass him in beauty and craft. This striving, present from his early years, was rooted in deep insecurity. Like many narcissists, they feared being imperfect and flawed. Almost the entire in-universe lore emphasizes this theme. In the Horus Heresy novel, Fulgrim, it is shown that when Fulgrim touched Lair's mirror, he felt an omen. A guardian of darkness promised him a shining future if he proved his ideality. But each such step was accompanied by a small moral compromise. As Graham McNeill remarks, the path from striving for perfection to universal downfall is not a leap, but a series of justified small steps, after 100 of which a person becomes completely different. Goodreads.com. From a psychological perspective, this personality type can be described as narcissistic perfectionism. It combines grandiose self-representation with rigid demands for outcomes. Narcissists exhibit excessive self-love, an exaggerated sense of self-importance, and a constant need for admiration. Narcissismfree.com. Haven't we seen Fulgrim act this way? He demanded admiration from his legion and the Emperor, could not tolerate criticism, and saw himself as the best of the best. This behavior aligns with contemporary criteria for narcissistic personality disorder: fantasies of unlimited power, striving for special status, exploiting others, and a lack of empathy. my.clevelandclinic.org. For example, he justified the most brutal acts by high aims. "I am the temple of the Emperor's glory," and any doubt or condemnation he took as a personal insult. Psychological studies show that narcissists tend to feel special and disregard others' feelings. my.clevelandclinic.org. Narcissismfree.com. Fulgrim acted exactly like that. He spared neither enemies nor friends. According to legend, after Dropsite Massacre, he killed battle brothers, including acts of brutality against loyalists. His ostentatiously refined lifestyle and elaborate armor decoration only reinforced his conviction of exceptionality. This narcissism partly compensated for deep insecurity. In psychotherapeutic terms, Fulgrim built an illusion of perfection to hide his fear of failure. Narcissismfree.com. To fully describe Fulgrim's personality, it helps to use several psychological models. See table below. According to the Big Five, Fulgrim is clearly high in openness to experience and conscientiousness. He applied creativity to the art of war and life, exploration of new beauty, and fastidiously pursued order and ideal. At the same time, he scored low on agreeableness. He disregarded others' sufferings for his ends. He likely had high extroversion, leadership, charisma, and low neuroticism, calm and self-assured unless attacked by demons. By the MBTI system, Fulgrim resembles an ENTJ, commander, decisive, organized leader. ENTJs strive for high goals, plan strategically, and manage people. eu.themyersbriggs.com. In DSM terms, he primarily fits narcissistic personality disorder, with pronounced perfectionism, OCP-like traits, rigid standards, and a drive for control that lead to maladaptive behavior. Model/system. Fulgrim's characteristics. Psychoanalysis, Freud and Jung. Narcissistic eternal youth, a strong superego, ideal, conflicts with the id, suppressed desires. He seeks to personify ideals, avoiding vulnerability. Big Five, ocean. Openness, high. Creator, seeks newness. Conscientiousness, high. Organized, systematic. Extroversion, high. Charismatic leader. Agreeableness, low. Pursues own goals, manipulative. Neuroticism, low or moderate. Internal confidence, but vulnerability due to demonic influence. MBTI, ENTJ, commander. Decisive, organized leader. ENTJs strive for high goals, plan strategically, and manage people. eu.themyersbriggs.com. In DSM terms, he primarily fits narcissistic personality disorder, with pronounced perfectionism, OCP-like traits, rigid standards, and a drive for control that lead to maladaptive behavior. External influences and environment, from the Emperor to the demons. Fulgrim's personality was also shaped by external circumstances. He was personally raised by the Emperor, who stuck out him among the brothers. The Emperor admired beauty and refinement. During a hypothetical or representational sermon on Terra, he called Fulgrim "my pearl," which reinforced the Primarch's belief in his own exceptionality. The Emperor's Children Legion originally cultivated the striving for perfection as its official ideology. Everything from appearance to fighting technique was to be flawless. A recent codex notes that the Emperor's children are perverted heretical Astrides, sons of the demonic Primarch Fulgrim,
are proud traitors, victims of their own debauched obsessions. Mermuffins.com. The Nietzschean passions of the Legion stoked Fulgrim's inner need to outdo the Creator himself. A key role was played by the Emperor's gift, the powerful weapon Lyre. This ancient blade became a vessel for Slaaneish's power and gradually invaded Fulgrim's consciousness. There is no official psychological analysis in the text, but the motive is clear. The demonic blade extracted and amplified his weaknesses. Much like ideas can be contagious, Fulgrim allowed a double influence from Horus's messages and from chaos itself. A thing of evil, like the sword Lyre, slowly seized his mind. TV Tropes paraphrase. Narratively, Fulgrim first encounters a demon. In the novel Fulgrim, the weapon's power manages and intensifies his perfectionism, and he does not perceive moral boundaries. When Fulgrim finally took his path, abandoning his body and becoming a titled demon of Slaanesh, he fully lost his previous moral constraints. Finally, his environment mattered. To assuage his own betrayal, he accepted Horus's logic and the propaganda, "Yes, the Imperium is doomed," Let us reconcile with chaos for higher aims. A coterie of treacherous brothers provided cover and allies. Conversations with wordsmiths and priests of art, for example, figures who lured him with the power of art, perpetuated the deceptive thought. If even Horus acknowledged the value of beauty above all dogma, then Fulgrim must be on the right path. Being deeply susceptible to support and applause, typical for a narcissist, he absorbed the idea that his views were endorsed by higher authority, therefore they must be correct. This is an example of cognitive bias. Psychology shows that when someone sees confirmation of their view from an authoritative source, they tend to ignore contradictions. Psychoanalytic and archetypal perspective. From a psychoanalytic standpoint, Fulgrim can be seen as a classic example of a narcissistic personality in Freudian terms, a dominant superego, ideal, desperately seeking approval, while the id, instincts, is repressed and only manifests via projection, chaos, Lear's sword. According to Freud, rejecting the reality of imperfection can become pathological if a phase of healthy self-regard is not completed. He fits the Peter Pan syndrome, the eternal boy described in popular psychology. This archetype, Jung calls it puer aeternus, is characterized by impulsivity, egocentrism, and unwillingness to accept adult responsibilities. Narcissismfree.com. Fulgrim behaved exactly so. All his life, he remained a sort of adolescent artist, rebelling against structure. "You lie, I am perfection itself," he shouts at Fabius Bile in one scene. According to Jung, narcissism is often linked to seeing one's repressed self in others. Because Fulgrim adored creativity and beauty, Slanesh, the god of pleasure, served for him as a mirror, an ideal interlocutor for his obsession. A Jungian archetypal analysis would note that his persona was the god of art, while the shadow manifested in the horrific scenes of the Merveille and the murder of friends when Fulgrim succumbed to chaos. The crucial point, the unimpossible ideal of the self, puer, and the pursuit of it, indifference to reality, are classic Jungian motifs of a hero's fall, which fits his story well. Narcissismfree.com. Cognitive behavioral analysis. From a cognitive psychology perspective, Fulgrim's fall can be described through thinking distortions. He showed self-justification, a just world fallacy. By killing around him in the name of art, the Primarch perceived it not as barbarity, but as the triumph of human will. His perfectionist standards were dichotomous. Either an idea is worthy of the emperor's life, or it is a traitor. Such all-or-nothing thinking, black and white, is characteristic of a narcissist in crisis, especially when Lear's sword implanted hallucinatory images of ideal, and every mistake or compromise was felt as a personal catastrophe. In behavioral terms, Fulgrim received immediate reinforcement for his conduct. Exaggerated praise from the emperor and the legion's cult acted as positive reinforcement. Each display of grace and mastery was rewarded. At the same time, the consequences of his transformation, for example, triumphs or revelations from Slanesh, further reinforced the behavior. This resembles addiction. First, the sweet feeling of superiority, the cocaine of success. Then, an increasing dose is needed, perfection, up to dependence on extreme sensations and the colors of chaos. Finally, at the group level, social factors amplified the crisis. When Fulgrim joined chaos, his behavior became normalized among EC retainers. Seeing that a brother Primarch, Horus, and the idol of the Legion, the heretic priest, approved of his actions, the Primarch sank into cognitive comfort and stopped doubting.
group dynamics of us versus all removed his dissonance, moral tension, logically enabling him to continue the perfectionist program of destruction. Goodreads.com. Conclusion: the final betrayal. Summing up, the explanation of Fulgrim's fall looks like this: a combination of deep-rooted personality traits, narcissism, perfectionism, and external factors, praised by the Emperor, the Legion's cult, the demonic blade lair, chaos propaganda, led to inexorable escalation. At first, each individual act, whether new ornamentation of armor or a skillful sculpture, seemed an innocent striving for an ideal. But in the context of chaos and a heated psyche, Fulgrim committed increasingly destructive small steps, justifying them with the purity of purpose. The internal explosion occurred in the theater of the Merveille. A scene full of blood and orgy became the catalyst of final transformation. It was then that love of perfection merged with the insatiable thirst of sensual pleasures of Slaanesh, and Fulgrim consciously chose chaos. Important, no single factor broke him alone. Without demonic power, he might have remained fixated on his own standards, but perhaps refrained from outright betrayal. Without the narcissistic core, the sword would never have made him a demon. Together, they produced a synergistic effect. As psychoanalysts note, excessive narcissism combined with external triggers leads to a sharp character change. And so Fulgrim found himself trapped in his own illusion of the great creator. Narcissismfree.com. Conclusion: Fulgrim betrayed the Imperium because of the combination of his psychological vulnerability and an environment reinforced by chaos influence. His ideal of art and war was beautiful, until it became a justification for the most abhorrent acts. Thus, his path from perfect son to demon Primarch is a tragedy of narcissism frozen into a mania of superiority driven to absurdity by external temptations. Sources: official descriptions and character treatments from Warhammer 40K, Black Library, Horus Heresy, Codex, Emperor's Children, Black Library, Mermuffins.com, as well as modern psychological research on narcissism and personality, narcissismfree.com, my.cleveland.clinic.org. These materials made it possible to combine lore and scientific analysis for a fuller understanding of Fulgrim's fall.